Okay, check this out. I can't believe that it's already time to harvest the onions. It seems like just a couple weeks ago that I did last year's onion harvesting video. Now you got to remember too, when I harvest and cure my onions, I do it for freeze drying. I mean, I do keep some onions, but I freeze dry everything to a powder. And I'm actually a little bit late to the game this year when it comes to harvesting the onions because life gets in the way. Gets in my way just like it gets in your way. But take a look at this. One thing I find really cool is, I've told you before, since the I don't have much of a sniffer anymore, but just standing here, I just did a little short video and I pulled one of them up, the Walla Wallas, and I can smell onion over here like crazy. So take a look. I planted these on a 4 to 6 inch spacing, which honestly I thought was going to be way too close. But I wanted to get as many in this 4x4 raised bed garden as I can. Now I didn't build this 4x4, I bought it on Facebook Marketplace for 30 bucks. And that was like 2 years ago. And it has served me well. So what we're going to do is go through and pull all these onions, and then we're going to get this bed ready to put my broccoli and or cauliflower in for my fall crop. Even with that close of a spacing, look at that. We got some serious onions going on there. One other thing I wanted to show you, I did something a whole lot different this year. I had extra room when I planted my rows because I just went to 4 to 6 inch spacing. I do a lot of freeze drying and make onion powder so I can keep it all year long, and I cook with it like crazy. It's awesome. Something I noticed last year was I left a whole bunch of my spring onions, my green onions, in the ground a little bit too long, and they started getting really big. So I planted a whole bunch of them over here, and that's all these tall ones that you see over here on my right, your left, are the spring onions or the green onions. So take a look. When you leave them in the ground, I'll bring it over to you. They start to get huge. And these I can throw in the food processor, the Ninja, whatever, take it down to a liquid, put it in the freeze dryer, and it'll give me a ton of onion powder so I can keep a bunch of these awesome guys for slicing up for hamburgers and that kind of stuff. Who couldn't, a lot of people, a lot of my friends that have these new houses, mine's a much older house on a 1/4 acre lot, so I have a little bit more room and I understand that. A lot of my friends have these newer houses that they bought that just have this little rectangle for a backyard. And they say, well, we don't have, don't have room to garden. A 4 foot by 4 foot, and actually I'll have to measure it. It might even be 4 foot by 3 foot raised bed garden. And I think I got 60 of these, but who couldn't use this? I haven't bought onions in years because I just grow them. I keep about half of them for grilling and barbecues and that kind of thing, slicing. And then the other half go into the Ninja and we freeze dry it, and I have powder well past next year. If you're one of these people who are thinking you can't grow, you don't have room to grow, you absolutely can. You can do it in pots, you can do it in raised beds, you can even make your own raised bed, and I really want to do a video to show you how to do that. But you could make them real decorative, make it fit the backyard. That way, if you're like me, I'm the gardener, make your wife happy and make it look good. If it's the other way around, make your husband happy and make the backyard look good. But these things are giant, and I can't believe that they got this big off of such close spacing. Let's see how many we get. We did get some smaller baseball size ones. And look at that, probably even just a little bigger than golf ball size. So you do get all different sizes, because then right next to it, we got another giant. I saw a post on one of my Facebook groups the other day, and I think this is what they were talking about. And I asked the question, but never got a response. But they were talking about how to dry, and I can't remember how they worded it, but I took it as, because I saw that I had a couple like this. Looks like 2 onions inside one casing, I don't know what you call it. But 2 onions are in there, so I'll probably try to pull them apart and dry them that way. And then look, we got the little baby. And then I only had a couple rows of these red onions that They didn't get too big, but they're plenty usable, and I'm sure they're going to taste great. Okay, it looks like final tally on the big onions was 56, so I was close with 60. Then we go through, and I got to pull all these giant spring green onions that I did for powder. And I'm telling you, if you haven't done that before, these actually taste really good. They're definitely worth your time to grow. Look at these. There's 19 of these in one cluster that was just in the corner of the bed. So you could easily do this with a 5-gallon pot, 5-gallon bucket, 10-gallon bucket. You could do even more and just get a ton of onions. You can slice these up and put them on burgers. They're a really good size, so I encourage you to try it. And then I didn't forget about just your traditional spring onion either. I did a couple rows of those because they're just good. I mean, look at the size of these things for just being spring onions. That's good eating right there, and it's something that any of us out there can do. I'm really trying to encourage everybody to grow something. If we go back to the old days, even if you have one 4x4 bed, you grow onions, your neighbor grows tomatoes, your other neighbor grows a prolific pepper, and you guys trade. Any little bit takes us off of the dependence of the government and the food supply. And if everybody out there started doing that, think about the way this world would actually be. Not to mention, bring you closer with your neighbors and you'd know exactly where your food came from. And a lot of times when people say they don't have the room for gardening, they're looking at the way traditional farming is doing spacing. And in a garden, when you're supplying all the nutrients and the water that those plants need, you can move those plants a lot closer together and get a ton more out of a small space. Look at the size of this cluster that I just pulled out of there. It just amazes me what you can do in a small space. Look at that. And just like that, another year of onions is in the book. So, what did I say, 58 of the regular sized onions. We got almost 120 of the spring onions that were just in these 2 rows over on this side of the bed. So now you may ask, it's only August. What are we going to do with this bed? We're going to throw a bag of compost on top, give it a nice good layer, water it in, maybe put some bone meal and blood meal in there, and we're going to let it sit for maybe a week, and then it'll be time for the fall planting of my brassicas. You really want to have a plan going into this because you don't want your beds to sit stagnant, and you want to grow as much food in a season as you can. So this bed here will provide me with a year's worth of onions. Really think about how, I mean, a lot of people say, oh, 58 onions. Yeah, you buy a bag of onions, they're not that much. They don't taste anything like the onions you grow out here. The onions you grow out here are spectacular. And really think about how many onions you go through in a year. 58 will last you, well, will last most people the entire year, especially if you cure them right. They're going to last that long, or at least about that long. Now, sweet onions don't last quite as long, and there's different varieties, and we can go into that later. What I'm trying to get across to you is anyone can do this. And look at the size of this bed. It's not that big. And you can pull off that much, and it's going to grow me onions and broccoli and or. I think I've got 16 broccoli started under the grow lights and like 8 cauliflower. So I'll decide what goes in here next. So all you got to do to prepare a bed to get the next thing growing is, I always like to, I don't do tilling or anything like that, of course. It's a raised bed garden. You can. We're making our own soil here. Now your broccoli and your cauliflower and all that stuff, they sit on top the same way onions do. So you don't have to go deep with anything. I just loosen the soil up by hand. You can see it's nice and fluffy anyway. Like if you're doing liquid fertilizer like I talked about in a bunch of my other videos, then you don't have to add as much of your granular fertilizer when you're getting your bed prep done, because you're going to be giving your plants the fertilizer they need that's available to them. Make sure we got a nice loose soil. grab us another bag of compost. Now you can see that onions don't take a lot of your soil up. The roots aren't very big. Not like peppers and tomatoes. When you pull them up, they don't pull this big glob out. So I only need one bag of compost. And we're just gonna throw it on here. One might even be too much. But every time I pull a crop from a bed, I put a bag, at least a bag, if not two, of compost. And like I've told you before, I use the Eco Compost. You can get it at Home Depot and Lowe's. It's made here in Colorado, and I've never had any bad experiences with it, and it's like $5 a bag. Just spread it out evenly. Doesn't have to be perfect. We'll give it a heavy water in. We'll give it about a week, and it's ready for our brassicas. Now you might notice one other thing, and I really haven't talked about it this year or maybe even last year, but having a 4x4 raised bed, and actually, like I said, I think it's 3x4, I'll have to measure. But having it right here in the middle of my garden, the scent of onions keep a lot of the bugs away. Onions and garlic, you'll notice that I space them out throughout. I've got onions in my tomato bed over here. I keep garlic back here. And a lot of that is to keep the bugs and the pests away, or at least to help keep the bugs and pests away. And it does a pretty good job. So give it a try. Plant some onions in with your other plants that you're growing, whether it be peppers or anything. As long as you've got them spaced right, you give them enough fertilizer. I don't really believe those charts that try to say that, you know, these work well together, these don't, that kind of thing. It's all on how you set your garden up. So really experiment for yourself, and don't just believe what you see on the internet. Even me, I want you to try it. Take what I'm doing. I'm just showing you the way I've done it for 30 years, and may not be right for you, but I'm trying to give you something to give it a try, and who knows, it might be successful for you too. Okay, just so you can see I wasn't BSing you, this is one of those big gorilla carts, and you can see it is just loaded and packed full of onions. If you haven't given onions a try yet, I encourage you to do so. They're really easy to grow. Don't let them intimidate you. I see a lot of people on the internet talking about how hard it is to grow onions. I promise you it's not. And I'm always here. I like to help. Don't hesitate to shoot me an email. The email's connected, or a comment, but the email's connected here to the YouTube page, and it's easy. It's thechiliprepper@gmail.com. I don't mind one bit, and I like helping you out. So if you would, do me a favor, like this video if you got something out of it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see some really cool updates and maybe some more of my tips. Even though they're not groundbreaking, there might just be that one tip that pushes you over the edge and gives you a bumper crop like we got out of these onions this year. I'm Steve with the Chili Prepper channel, and like I always say, you don't have to be a prepper to be prepared. Every little bit counts, and get out there and grow your garden. We'll see you on the next one.